So, boys and girls, business is tough as we know it, and you're going to have highs and lows. You're going to have wall kicking moments. You're going to have times when you're wondering if you should just go back to corporate America and forget this whole entrepreneurship thing. My guest today is a remarkable human being. He leads several companies in the personal growth space. His companies work with startups, they work with Fortune 500s, and some brands that are under his current existing company include NASP, which is National Association of Sales Professionals, Growth U, Envision U. They have offices in Canada, in Spain. I know he's working on some top secret projects. We'll see if he talks about those. And for 17 years, he was the lead trainer for none other than Tony Robbins. And if you are someone who listens to the show often, you know, I had Tony's son, Jarek, on not that long ago, and we were talking about this whole concept of mindset and business. And so in addition to all of this, this gentleman has been a close friend, in fact, more like a brother from another mother for many, many years, and we love each other. So I want to welcome to the show today, Mr. Rod Hairston. Rod, it's great to have you.
Susan, I love being here. Thank you.
Well, Rod, I know you just got back from Iceland.
Iceland, yes.
You're in the middle of several projects right now. Thank you for taking your time out, and I want to jump right in. Someone listening to this and they're thinking, I don't know if I am cut out for building a business. What do you want to say?
Well, okay, so I'll give two answers. Number one, if you doubt, don't. Okay. Now, for those of you that says, no, I'm going to do it anyway. All right. So I'm going to support you. If it was that easy for you to kind of go, he's right, then it means that you have a external or an extrinsic motivation. And it's so important to understand that the number one quality, in my opinion, especially in this market today and right what's going on right now, is that you have to have a strong internal drive, and you have to continue to strengthen that strong internal drive. And just kind of remember, it's either external, and just a little bit of explanation, where as my friends tell me it's a good idea, it's a good idea. When they tell me it's not a good idea, it's not a good idea. I read the news. The news says it's great to start a business. I read another I watch another channel and it says I shouldn't. The up and down, that emotional sort of, back and forth seesaw is not going to support you. You have to start developing. And here's the beautiful thing about it. You can develop an internal motivation. You can develop an internal drive. And what you have to do is you have to find your style. There's so much great information around developing the proper psychology and identity for being an entrepreneur that's going to be successful, and really start studying that type of thinking, okay? So developing your own belief systems, really putting focus on an identity that's going to align with a vision, having a strong, clear-cut vision of what you want to accomplish, and making sure that your purpose isn't just to make a bunch of money. That's very, very unsustainable, okay?
I love what you said. If you doubt, don't. So how do you, if someone is in that place and they're like, oh, there was a truth bomb right there, Ron, like if I'm doubting, then don't quit. What are some techniques you recommend? Because you are the master of this. When someone is in that mindset that they are doubting, what are some very salient things they could do to get out of that?
Well, so remember, doubt isn't some intuitive thing. There's some message from the universe telling you not to do it. Doubt just simply means you haven't made a decision. Okay, that's really what it means. So really, you're not going to get the proper answers or whether or not you should do anything until you decide. And look at the word decision. DE is of or from, and scission means to cut off. So cut off any of the possibility, because that's what you're going to have to do anyway. I've made decisions and then I've changed my decisions with companies. I've made decisions with partnerships. And before I signed the paperwork, I was like, no, because only after the decision did I get a clear sort of view of what I was actually getting into. And so kind of recognize that being an entrepreneur or starting your own company isn't a perfect process, and you're going to have to be able to adapt and change and sometimes disappoint people, but you can only do that after a decision. So decide, cut off any other possibility, make the decision first, and then you get access to a part of your brain, a part of your nervous system that is going to give you just much more clarity, and it's going to help you look at things in a way where fear isn't blocking it, right? You can now remember, I can be decisive and fearful, and what we do is we call that courage. Okay, that's what courage is. So once I have courage, I'm looking at things courageously. I'm nervous, but I'm not doubtful. I'm nervous. The fear is a good thing. The fear is a signal that I'm stepping into some level of uncertainty. That's healthy. But develop courage, but decide first. You don't go from doubt to courage. You go from decision to courage. And you have to look at your ideas. You have to look at your plan. You have to look at what you want to accomplish from a courageous place. Okay. And that, again, it creates a different level of biochemistry, a different level of focus.
Would you say that one of the main, I mean, you have trained millions of people. Would you say that one of the determining factors for success or failure is that people just don't decide?
Huge. And again, a lot of people, and the ones that are successful, they don't recognize that they actually did decide. And so remember, what does decision come down to? Well, it comes down to leverage, right? What is my leverage? Right? Oh, I don't like my job. I just want to make some more money. It looks like fun. Looks like fun what Susan is doing. I mean, Susan gets to go to MIT and she gets to do her own thing. And that's not decision. That's liking or wanting.
Mm.
Decision means that I have to create the leverage, or I have the leverage. And here's the thing, guys. You hear some of these entrepreneurs come on and they tell this really amazing story and how this would never happen again. Or you hear Tony Robbins come on and talk about, I was in my 200 square foot apartment and I was fat watching all my children, or whatever show he says. And you go, well, my life didn't suck like that, right? Or I'm not overweight, or I'm making pretty good money. So where's my leverage? Create your leverage, and
Mm.
create your leverage by being a entrepreneur that comes from an offering place than a money seeking place.
Mm.
Okay. So remember, the whole goal of being an entrepreneur is that I'm bringing more value to the market, and I'm going to measure that value in profit. Not that I'm going to make a lot of money for me so I can live like Susan, or I can live like this person, or I can have the jet and the forward. No, I'm telling you that, and some people have been able to accomplish that. And you think, well, right, no, it's short term. And if they did, it's fluky, right?
Mm.
Again, if you got a product like Viagra, then you can be a jerk and it's going to work out. But even then, you got to make sure that you got to make sure that you get back around, because again, we've watched a lot of organizations fail. We were just talking about a company that generated $850 million of profit, and then the next year they were closed. The leaders, and we can go back, and that we know the leader, and that leader only cared about money, and in fact laughed that your whole philosophy is wrong. Look how much money I made. He's closed. He's broke.
Mhm.
So remember, that money thing is fleeting if it's not built on the right foundation, and this has to be built on offering. What am I offering? What value am I offering? And once I can identify the value that I'm offering, now I can start creating the leverage. How badly do people need this? How awful are their lives going to be if I don't deliver this to the market? What impact? What is the possibility? How do I help humanity? I look at the companies that Susan is building, one in particular, and I'm not going to go into what it is, and it's the future. It's the freaking future, right? And it's going to help all of us have a higher quality of life if we so choose to be part of it. That creates leverage for her. So now she can sit down and she can personalize the impact. And
Mhm.
once she personalizes the impact, that starts moving me emotionally. It starts supporting my internal motivation, my EQ, which is my emotional quality, my emotional quotient starts to grow. And that really helps me develop the courage to get through the uncertainties, which is the sort of uncertainty in business is your rangers training, your SEAL training, this is the ante to play. If you can't deal with the uncertainty, then you don't belong in the successful entrepreneurial world.
I'm only laughing because if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing Rod's expression, you're seeing my expression. If you're listening, you might hear it. So Rod did serve in the military, and thank you for your service. And so when we're talking about certainty and uncertainty, he has lived it. And let's talk about that just for a moment, because for people who really don't know your story, you know, they're listening and going, well, he's just a badass. And, you know, he was just born this way. It was like Lady Gaga. He's born this way, came out of the womb, and he's like, he's got it all figured out. That wasn't always the case, especially around this concept of certainty and uncertainty. I'm sure you have seen this, and I definitely have in audiences and people, where people will create deliberate uncertainty because it will give them certainty, whether it's doing drugs, whether it's hooking up with people, whether it is getting drunk or continuing to sabotage their finances. How did you learn that lesson?
Well, you know, it's so interesting because some of us, the beautiful thing about today in the world today is this level of information. So right now, some of you are going to be looking at this on YouTube free.
Mm-hmm.
And when, if I'd have got this in the 80s or the 90s, man, I'd have paid every dime that I ever just to hear what I've heard today. Nobody taught these things, yet it's the same nervous system and it's more opportunity. So because we have all of this information out there now, the genius is massively discounted because people can just get it, right? So I really want you to kind of get that, right? Like we still believe that, well, I'm listening to this on YouTube, how valid can it be? Guys, people will pay millions of dollars to get to what we were able to get to here in a few minutes, because we gave you what all of the secret societies taught: identity, uncertainty. Go back and look at all of the books or listen to the symbols and the symbolism and everything else, and it's around this. Now, what I was very fortunate that when I went into the military, I didn't go to learn how to deal with uncertainty. What they noticed about some of us, based on our ability to be proactive, I won Sale of the Quarter and Sale of the Year, and when you do that, you get invited to an admiral staff, right? And when you're on an admiral staff, you're fortunate because you have an admiral. An admiral in the Navy is he's pretty powerful, and people leave you alone, and the admiral can bend the rules a little bit around what his staff and what he wants for his or her staff. Well, from admiral staff, I went into college. I made it into a college program, which is a very great college program because they allowed me to stay in the military and get paid fully and go to school. And that was my duty station. And I had to maintain a 3.5 with 21 class hours. And you got to stay in the program. And in that program was a bunch of Navy SEALs. And after we got out of, we became pretty good friends. We run together, we worked out together, and they liked me. And so they said I should go back to Spec War. So I went back to Spec War, and I went into a unit called the Mobile Comm Team. And the Mobile Comm Team was, because I was a communicator and I had the clearances, I was able to go through the training and make it into the Mobile Comm Team. And what the point is that everything about the training was your ability to deal with uncertainty. That's it. So the quality of your performance and your career came down to the amount of uncertainty you could think in, that you could actually act in. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, this is so important to understand. You might not get the control space that we got in the military to actually train you to see how you dealt with it and then put you in another situation, because again, it was controlled. They knew what they were doing. Being an entrepreneur, there's a couple of ways of dealing with uncertainty. Number one, you must persist.
Mhm.
You have to be careful about evaluating your results in the short run, because you are not a $1 billion seed. I don't care how great you think your idea is. I don't care how smart you are. There's so many things that you just have to go through in order to be successful. You could be a genius. It's geniuses that have, I mean, it's still geniuses that are billionaires that are making silly mistakes because their intellect is way ahead of their experience, right? And so they're just making mistakes that they just have zero awareness of, right? Because they didn't even know that existed because they didn't have the experience yet. So it's important to kind of look at that and go, there is no pass, fail, or success failure in being an entrepreneur. It's perseverance, it's persistence. And and each time it happens, you have to go, got it, got the lesson. Whether you did or not consciously, say you did, right? And then persist, especially if you live in North America. You have zero excuse. Freaking persist if you have a great product and you are offering value. Number two, to deal with uncertainty, is you have to have an intrinsic motivation or internal motivation. You have to be driven by your belief systems. You have to be driven by your own unique value systems. And you have to be driven by your own identity of I am. And you need to develop it, right? You have to be being part of a mastermind is not going to that group so that everybody in the group can tell you what you should do and you get all of the answers. No, that's not what it's all about. And that's what some people think it is, right? That's not that. First of all, the group, if you come into a group of internally driven people, they're not going to want you to be around if you're that way. So if you're in a group and they're telling you what to do, be careful about the information, right? It's what offered. You got to develop that internal motivation. You have to persist, right? And you have to make sure that you're utilizing your physiology, your physical expression properly. Okay, so part of the mind is the body, and the body has to be in a strong posture so that when you're facing these beautiful lessons that vision will bring to you, right? If I want to be worth, man, I did so well until I put down a vision of a $600 million company, that I want to lead a $600 million company. My mind was like, I don't know who the hell you think you are, but okay, what you're doing now, let's break it because it ain't gonna get you there. And everything started going wrong. Like, what the hell, man? And the vision was sending me the right path, the right lessons, the muscle. It was putting more weights on the bar so that I can become strong. I thought by building a bigger vision, I would automatically be strong. The vision does nothing but absolutely go tap into your capability and start reshaping it. And sometimes it's painful. And this is when an internal motivation serves you, because when I have an internal motivation, I can say nothing is happening to me, what is happening for me, and because it's part of my vision. Okay, very important psychology to have as an entrepreneur.
I mean, you gave so much wisdom there, clearly. And thinking about the certainty and uncertainty, when I went to MIT to interview, the whole interview is behavioral. You would love it. I was like, I think Rod wrote these questions because people think MIT, Tony Stark, they're going to ask you to code something or hack something or do something to get in, but it's all behavioral. It's like, tell me about a time when someone gave you negative feedback. How did you deal with it? Tell me about a time when your team fell apart and how did you handle it?
Wow.
And it's all behavioral based, which is interesting because their hypothesis is, and this leads me to the next question, that past behavior, especially in the face of uncertainty, is an excellent predictor of future behavior in the face of uncertainty. How do you feel about that statement?
I absolutely agree. And I think it is. And what's so interesting about it is I remember in performance, from a performance perspective, I was spectacular, but I had test anxiety. So I would actually have a 4.0 about valuation. I would actually be able to do a job superior to people who tested better, because in a test, I would let a lot of uncertainty get to me. So you have to kind of remember that behavior in one particular category in your life, or your identity in one particular category, is not the same. So some of you are great technicians, and now you want to start your own business as a technician. You have a lot of certainty, you have a lot of strong internal motivation. But as an entrepreneur and dealing with numbers and actually understanding the financial strength of your organization and how to structure that properly, you have massive uncertainty, because that's just a habit you brought with you. In fact, that was one of the reasons you didn't go to college or whatever else, and now you're stuck back in that place. Guys, remember something, and it's so important to understand this. That anxiety comes as a pattern. Remember that your capability is only expressed by the posture that delivers it. Okay? Right? So, right? So if posture first, physiology first, physical expression first. The things that I'm weakest in is the things that I have the most confidence in. That I will create the most confidence because I need the most capability. Okay, so if I feel weak here, I'm going to be more confident here, right? I'm going to be stronger. Because I'm telling my mind, hey, mind, I want to fight for this. I want to tap into capability. I want to use my belief systems. And then all of a sudden, I started remembering things. I remember passing a test that I don't even know how I passed it. It worked so well. Business statistics. I didn't know crap. It was no way I should have passed that test or passed that class. But I used exactly what I'm telling you right now. I would walk into the class like I owned it, didn't know what I was doing. Somewhere from the depths of my mind, I know statistics, because I walked out of that class with a B. I don't. It's the greatest miracle of my whole life, and it comes and I've taken that into my entrepreneurial life. People look at me and go, dude, you just like totally messed that up, and you're walking around so confident, like it won't mess it up tomorrow. And so people are watching me go down and then boom, how did you do that? How did you go from here to here? Well, because I just made the correction. I didn't allow an outside circumstance uh, or a lack of knowledge about something to mess up my emotional quotient or my own internal motivation. Believe in yourself. And that's probably the short answer to everything I just said. Continuously believe, but show it to yourself by how you carry yourself.
I love that you talked about physiology, because when you think about when soldiers are marching, they're not like all slumped
Yeah,
over. I remember one of the first conversations you and I ever had was about how I walk into a room. And maybe it was because I was a correctional officer in a federal prison, men's maximum security. I used to spit shine those boots, and I'm like, I had to. It's like you either walk with authority or you get eaten by the wolves. And even now, I'm like, the higher the heels, the better. I will walk in.
You want to know, so interesting. When I first met you, and please, everybody, listen to this whole thing, because I'm gonna start it. When I first met Susan, I thought, wow, what a physically big woman. And she's this petite little beautiful thing. She's a beautiful petite woman. I mean, she's not petite, but she's not, but her presence, when you meet her, she's 6'5", and she's this big woman with these big piercing eyes with this beautiful, powerful voice. And it's because that's her presence, right? Wonder Woman. And then when you get to know her and you're around her, she's this beautiful little petite woman that you get a little confused by, like, wow. And I want all of us to kind of recognize that the perception of you to yourself and to your people, to your investors, to your customers comes down or comes from your level of belief in the vision, in your purpose, and in your identity, who you are. You have to have it before you offer any value. Remember how Bezos walked around when Amazon wasn't doing crap. Amazon was this big joke that it was like it wasn't making any money. Same thing with, and now look at it. Remember a long time ago, we hear Amazon is like, that's the biggest bunch of crap. Or Facebook, right? Or Google. Look at the companies that that was just an idea, ideas that we didn't even really understand or thought was sustainable. Nobody thought we would be buying like this on the internet. Nobody thought it. Nobody thought that stores were in trouble, right? You'd have never thought that in a million years, and they are. But Bezos had the belief. He didn't know what the market was going to do. He could have been, it's a lot of people that the market switched against him, but he never wavered, right? He didn't have some profound knowledge. He had some profound emotion.
That's powerful. And it's that concept of this unwavering, unshakable, I'm going there, who's following me. You have personally coached people who've gone on to become billionaires.
Oh, yeah.
And one of my final questions, and I'll have to have you back, and Rod's in the middle of doing some massive things. That's a whole other show. But what would you say are the traits of those people who become billionaires? Because one of the things that people are like millionaires and billionaires. No, there's some different zeros in the billion than there is in the million. And a million isn't what it used to be. And some of you are listening like, Susan, oh my gosh, I'd love to make $1 million. Yeah, it's a different stratosphere to be a billionaire. So you've coached many. So what are the keynotes of these people who become billionaires?
Okay, it's what I call a beautiful imbalance. Mm-hmm. So billionaire has a beautiful imbalance. And what do I mean by that? Well, billionaire is so obsessed with the quality of their offering and what the offering can do. It's almost like it becomes, and again, some of you might know different situations, but let's talk about my experiences. And the billionaires that I coached, they were offering something that they thought was an inevitable sort of obvious thing that was going to happen. Like Elon Musk is a good example. I didn't coach him, but he's a good example. He believes that it's going to be several people that will be doing what he's doing. And so it becomes a race of quality, a race of innovation, a race of experience. I want to own the brand. I want my offering to become the name of this whole, we don't say tissue, we say Kleenex, even if we're taking another piece of tissue from a different box, right? We say Vaseline when it's petroleum jelly. They own that space. They own something that they know everybody is going to use. And so it's a healthy sense of urgency with something that they believe is absolutely obvious, whether people know it or not, that everybody is going to be using the iPhone, whether they know it or not. Everybody will be using a light bulb, whether they know it or not. And so my race is to own that space. And so in order to do that, folks, that takes the highest quality of, it's almost an obsessive belief system that it's like, I'll say it this way. Every billionaire future paced. He went into the future, or she went into the future, and she came back and she said what she saw. Everybody's using my product. If I don't do my job, it won't be my product. And so that sense of urgency is to catch up with what was already happening in their vision, right? So I want you guys to just imagine that if you went into the future with your product and you saw everybody using it, and as you were coming out of your vision, you saw the opportunity that if I don't do my job, it won't be my product. And so you get back to present day and you see what is if I do what I'm supposed to do. And because there's no way of measuring how far you should go or how much time and energy you should put in, you become obsessed. And that's what billionaires do.
The grand obsession.
The grand obsession.
And the future pacing is
yes.
huge.
Yeah.
And my final question for you is that, people may be listening to this and saying, well, Rod, I'm just a little baby solopreneur. What does it take for me to get to work with some of your training? And one of the many beautiful things that you've built is this sort of spectrum of, possibilities for people regardless of where they are at. So what would be the best way for someone to find out more about your work?
Well, you can see it on my shirt. It's growth, growth-u.com. Come and join the community, guys, and you can join free, and there's different levels of accountability. So it really does come down to, we have to grow. And the most beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur or a solopreneur or wherever you are, it's the most beautiful opportunity to grow and expand identity. What we'll do for you is we'll hold you accountable, but in a way that works for your style of accountability. And so and different people have to be held accountable differently. So understanding that you have to be accountable of growth. Accountability is the foundation of growth, because we are already accountable to each other. We're connected, right? I feel, Susan and I feel this huge, beautiful accountability that each time we talk, we're going to talk about some level of progress or some level of bounce back, right? That and we're always putting pressure on each other for capability, right? And that's why she calls me a big brother, because my little sister is a freaking genius, and always have been. And when I saw this person, I was like, oh my God. And I think that it was a level of respect upon looking into each other's eyes that the accountability was there. It was baked into the relationship. But it also should make me be responsible. So responsibility is next. My ability to respond in any situation. Remember, if you're coming from a place of value, if you're coming from beautiful intent and a pure heart, then everything that happens is only supporting you and being able, right, to grow. So my ability to respond to all of the things that come after I create a vision is like what life is all about, right? That's life. Life is responsibility, our ability response, right? What is my ability to respond? That's why you study, that's why you read, that's why you become part of a community, that's why you read and watch things like this. Flexibility is the next one. You're gonna have to do things differently. I don't care how great you were as an employee. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care what universities you've gone to. You're going to have to do things differently. You're going to have to, you cannot see that as some failure. That's just arrogance if you think that way. I don't care how freaking smart you are. You don't know what you don't know, right? And when you become to a new level of awareness, you got to grow up. And grow up means getting through that conscious incompetence. You have to be flexible. So flexibility, you have to see it differently. You have to read. You have to be careful about being so convicted to your way that now you got to stand your ground because you made a silly mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful about that. You can be certain and confident without having such conviction on emotion. Be careful. Okay. The next one is capability. You have to remember we're only using a little bit of our brain cells, a small part of our 100 billion brain cells. So the most beautiful thing about life is our capability. I've accomplished things through just believing I was capable and persisting with my sights forward towards my capability. I've done things that's just been absolutely incredible only for that reason. I didn't have any conscious understanding but I did the other abilities and I put them all towards what am I capable of? I'm capable of whatever my vision is. That's what I'm capable of. Right? I mean, a $1 billion company is not a big company anymore, folks.
Yeah.
It's like Susan's company is going to do that, or one of them, right? That's all, and everything is in place to do it. It's not even a big company anymore, and that sounds crazy. And I remember Susan and I being getting ready to go on stage or practicing before we're going on stage, and now 5 years later, she's getting ready to launch something or to take an organization to a level that's absolutely incredible. But it's not like the conversations we had 5 years ago, this would have been like, now it's a conversation. It's like, well, this is what I have to do. And I'm not accepting any other offer but that, Rod. I'm like, well, you know. It was like I'm not eating that burger. I want a vegetarian burger right now. Well, let's go somewhere else. That was just about the level of intensity. And then last but not least is vulnerability. Vulnerability is what growth is all about. Vulnerability is power, and vulnerability allows us to tap into our capability. It allows us to be flexible. It allows us to be accountable and responsible. It allows us to continuously love who we are because you get a chance to discover who you are through vulnerability. But vulnerability allows for the continuous rebirth of your identity, right? And it has to happen. Your identity has to expand.
Yeah.
Some of you are going to be super smart. You're going to make a ton of money, and it's going to be the worst thing that ever happened. Susan and I can tell you stories of $1 million homes and land. We've done some dumb crap.
We could tell some our own rebirth.
I know. We bought houses and crap so people would come and see, I made it. Look at my house. It was in a big, dumb house and the biggest house in the neighborhood that you're not going to, oh my goodness. And all of these things are just beautiful lessons that we can laugh at because we are vulnerable enough to go to the next level.
Yeah.
Right? We're vulnerable enough to get rid of that shell and go look for the next shell, the bigger shell. Right? Right? And get rid of that shell. And in that time of getting rid of one shell and finding the next one is vulnerability. But it's the only way you can grow, the only way that you can go to the next level and allow for more of you.
That was beautiful. That was so good. Well, and for everyone listening and watching, leaders ask for what they want. So if this has been powerful for you, we'd love for you to share it. Rod and I would love a 5-star review on iTunes, and of course, any on YouTube, comments, I read them all. So definitely we'd love to hear from you. And Rod, I'd love to have you back again. We could do a whole show just on stories. Actually, when I come visit you, I'll bring my recording stuff and we'll do a live show. And we could tell about all the mistakes we made. I'm sure every person listening wants to hear that.
Yes, absolutely. And really feel it with us. Like, get fully associated so you can make those mistakes in your imagination and be like, got it, and then move on.
That's actually, we should do a live workshop. All the mistakes Rod and Susan made, don't make them, and we're going to do it live, and we're going to use all our NLP techniques and take you, if you're a computer person, we're not talking natural language processing, we're talking neuro-linguistic processing.
That's right.
but we'll take you through feeling our physical pain when we spent the money,
Yes.
when we lost the deals.
Yes. Fully associate and then listen to, and then fully associate when we come out of it and what we learned and future pace and go through those experiences.
Yeah.
Right. And look at, and then forgive yourself as if you can identify with some of the things that we're saying.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about forgiveness, vulnerability. In order to forgive, you have to be vulnerable. Again, you have to be that way for yourself and other people.
Mm. That is powerful.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Rod, for being here. And I want to acknowledge everyone who were, I think, in 91 countries now. Someone just tells me the information. So I want to acknowledge everyone, wherever you are in the world, listening, watching. And I look forward to seeing you on a future episode. Thanks again, Rod, for being here.